Hello genealogists, it's Craig and this is Just Genealogy. I've been asked to talk about the Register of Enlistments. I plan on doing that anyway, so what I'm going to do is combine what I'd already put together for when I plan to do it and then add to it dealing with the soldier that was requested. And actually that soldier was a much better soldier to deal with anyway. So let's get started. So the Register of Enlistments. Actually, it has existed for several years as a NARA microfilm M233. And that means since it's a NARA microfilm with an M in it, it's likely it has a descriptive pamphlet. So you're definitely going to want to read the descriptive pamphlet. It's rather long, but it's in depth. It's crazily in depth, and you'll enjoy reading it. At least I enjoyed reading it. So there are 81 rolls of microfilm. And they're divided into 1790 and 1821, and those are alphabetical by last name. And then beginning in 1821 through 1914, they are by first letter of surname, then by year and month of enlistment. The reason it changes is in 1821, the Army reorganizes. And they now have, instead of just names of captains, they have names of companies like Company A, Company B, Company C. Now the Registry of Enlistments can be found just about anywhere. It's on Ancestry where you can search and browse it. It's on Fold 3 where you can search in a specific period for a specific letter range. And it's on Family Search where you can just do a basic search. So let's start with Ancestry. The first thing you do is you click on the card catalog, because in Ancestry we do everything using the card catalog. That way we can find things easily. So if you type in enlistments, the only thing that shows up is U.S. Army Register of Enlistments. That will take you to a search screen. You can also browse this collection, and you can see on the right the dates that are browsable, and it goes on all the way to 1914. What I'm looking at is 1798 to 1815 because I'm currently dealing with a War of 1812 soldier. His name is Henry Foote. If you've listened to my La Ronde battle video from last week, he died at the battle, killed in action on the 23rd of December, and he was in the 44th U.S. Infantry. So when we look at the Henry Footes that are there, we see some of them, but notice that two of them are born after 1812. And one we don't know, and one we do, 1787. Well, 1787 is consistent with a date of birth for somebody who was in the War of 1812. And remember, if you can remember back that far, the references for Henry Foote included two references on Maryland in the War of 1812 and Maryland casualties in the War of 1812. So this would appear, this top one would appear to be the Henry Foote that we're interested in. And we click on that, and then we click further, and what we're in is the peace establishment that ends May 17th, 1815, and we get to the page. Now these pages are on two sides of a ledger, so this is one side, and here we see Henry. He's the second entry. And then when you look at the second page, the facing page in the second entry, you see that he has a recruit return at New Orleans in May of 14, muster roll, Captain Miles, company, December 31st, 14, killed in action, December 23rd, 14. So he gets recruited in New Orleans. He shows up in Captain Miles's 44th U.S. Infantry, and he gets killed on the 23rd of December. So that's what's in his Register of Enlistments. And that's what we see on Ancestry. Now, we can also go to Family Search, and of course, Family Search has the Register of Enlistments, and they, of course, have a little wiki on it, and it will lead you to the United States Registers of Enlistments and how to use the collection. What's nice about this is it includes a list of a majority of the abbreviations that are used in the remarks sections. Not all of them, but many of them. And notice RR means recruiting return. MR, which is the most common one, is muster roll. Now, there are additional abbreviations that can be found if you can find a copy of Gardner's Dictionary of the United States Army. I forgot about that before I put this together, and I think you can. It's pretty easy to find if you go back to that wiki and click on the appropriate spot. Now, this is what the Register of Returns looks like on Family Search. This is probably why I don't use Family Search, because it's a little, I don't know, I'll call it fuzzy. It's not as crisp. The other place that you can find the Army Register of Returns is on Fold 3. And I don't like it because it's pretty dark. Here we see the same thing that we saw with Henry Foote. So 3 different places to find the Register of Returns. Now, Henry doesn't give us much information other than Maryland, New Orleans, what company he was in, and the fact that he died in action on the 23rd of December. And he's actually in my database of War of 1812 dead, which is how I put that other battle piece together earlier in the week. But let's talk about another soldier. So let's talk about George Payne. He served in the U.S. Army prior to the Civil War. He was born in Stafford County, Virginia, and he was probably born approximately 1828. So when we go to the Register of Enlistments and we put in that information, George Payne, 28, Virginia, you don't necessarily have to put in the 28, but had we put in the 28, 3 would have shown up. Because we didn't put in the 28, 7 showed up. So these top 3, the ones that say 28, one says 26, of course, these are the ones we're going to look at, because one of these must be George Payne, or should be George Payne. The others, the 1846 to 1867s, they're born too late. Now, if I hadn't included Virginia, I would have gotten a lot more results. I would have gotten 41 instead of that 7. So if I have Virginia, 1828, and George Payne, I will probably get 2 or 3, but again, they may miss that 1826 one. So I want to be iffy on the birth year, because about is about. But again, I would have seen a lot more people if I hadn't have included Virginia. Now, this is how ugly these pages look. My recommendation is that when you find the page and you get to the page, you don't look for the last name first. You look for the first name. And you search by first name. So if we go down the page and look for the Georges, we see George Parker, not him. Then we see George Payne, and it is him. Stafford County, Virginia, laborer, age 21. So that appears to be our guy. The other information, you want to collect all the information about the individual in that line, but the 2 things that you also want to remember are you want to collect the page number, and you also want to collect the year, because that's important too. And you probably would collect the year anyway as part of the date that's in this column that you're copying, but you want to be sure to collect the year, because you might forget to do that. So in 1847, we see on page 204, line 298, that there is a George Payne from Strafford County, Virginia, not Stafford. He's age 21. He enlisted on the 25th of April, 1847 in Company F of the 11th Infantry. and he was discharged 15 August 1848. That might be considered by some to be the end of show, but don't forget we still have two others we might look at to see what's going on. Well, we look at this one and we find George Payne. This happens to be the 1850 entry. Page 303, line 45, George Payne, Strafford County, Virginia. Age 21. Actually, this one actually says Stafford, not Strafford. They finally got it right. Age 21. And nope, actually this one does say Strafford. Age 21, enlisted 29 July 1855. Company F, 11th Infantry, discharged 1 July 1855. So this actually can enlist and be discharged in the same month, so this is probably just his termination in the book. And we see him here. Notice how it says Strafford instead of Stafford. And he's age 27. That RE on the other side says that he re-enlisted. RE stands for re-enlistment. Now let's go look at the 1855 one. And it turns out to be the same George Payne, age 27, enlisted 7 July 1855. He's now in Fort Riley, but he's with Company B, 2nd Dragoons, and he has a pension certificate. So he enlisted in 1855. Notice in the other book it said he enlisted 1 July, and then he was discharged. Well, here it shows him enlisted, and then a pension certificate. So that tells us he was discharged. Well, for this time period, those are old wars, and the Old Wars Index is up on Family Search. It's not on Ancestry or Fold 3 for some reason. But what is on Fold 3 is the Pension Numerical Index, and I sometimes like to use that before I go looking for an Old Wars pension, just because the Old Wars Pension Index is only available on Family Search. And when I go and look at it, there are a bunch of George Paynes out there. And what I see is here is one, George Payne with an Indian War pension. And it's number 13310. Here's a George Payne with an Old War pension, and it's number 17001. And here's George Payne with a Old War pension, 8706. So my sense is the George Payne that I'm looking for is not an Indian Wars pension, because he got a pension certificate. The other guy didn't get a pension certificate. He just applied. So it looks like this George Payne with the Old War certificate, number 24310, is the guy I'm looking for. Well, the Old War Pension Index is out at Family Search. And when I look for George Payne there, I'm expecting a guy from Virginia, and there's nobody from Virginia there. But there is a George Payne with a pension date of 1856. That would make sense because he gets discharged in 55. His pension place is Missouri. And then when I look at this card, I see that George Payne is a private in the 2nd U.S. Dragoons Company B. And that matches what was on the Register of Enlistments. So this is the Old War Pension Index card for the George Payne that we care about. Now, the Old War pensions are not digitized, so that means we're going to have to wait till we get to the National Archives to look for it. But I have more information to deal with that I might be able to deal with on Ancestry. And that is, remember, he was in the 11th Infantry. Well, there are returns for U.S. Regular Army infantry regiments, 1821 to 1916 on Ancestry. And they are the microfilm publication, Microcopy 665, roll number 123, 11th Infantry, April 1847 to July 1848, and there's 124 goes beyond that. And so these are only browsable. They are not searchable, so it will take some digging and some work to look through these to be able to find them. You will also find that he was in the 2nd Dragoons. Well, the 2nd Dragoons is a non-infantry regiment, and these are sort of hidden on Ancestry. You have to know that non-infantry means non-infantry. So there is a section, a series of records for just infantry, and then there's a series of records for everyone else. And if you look at the browse list, you can see that there is a 2nd Cavalry, but there's no 2nd Dragoons. I'm going to take a chance, and largely because I know, but I'm going to look at the 2nd Cavalry, 1849 to 1855. And when you look at the microfilm publication information in the front of M744, you'll see that it says, in regards to roll 16, reproduced on this roll are returns of the 2nd Cavalry from 1849 to 1855, when the designation was 2nd Dragoons. So we're in the right place. And if you look, there are muster rolls for the 2nd Dragoons out there. Talked about Henry Foote. Found him dead in the Register of Enlistments, killed on the 23rd of December. We found George Payne. We have found his 3 re-enlistments. We have found his Old War pension index card, and we have found places to look for his muster rolls in infantry army returns and in non-infantry army returns on Ancestry. Now there is one other piece, and that other piece is that in Record Group 94, the records of the Adjutant General's Office, in Entry 94, there's something called personal papers. And that is where we will likely find the enlistment contracts for George Payne and any other information that the Army may have collected on George Payne. If we don't find them in Entry 94, we can look for them in the enlistment contracts that are there nearby in one of the entries in Record Group 94 in the 90s. The entries in the 90s are probably the most important entries for looking for information about records created about individuals. So again, this is Craig with Just Genealogy. Having fun. I enjoy doing this very much. I hope you enjoy doing it also. And I will see you soon.